Welcome to another episode of the Paige Doodle Club. I'm your host, Mike Paige, and today we will be drawing a sunflower in honor of Jean Mineo and all of her hard work up at Hospital Hill. So grab your pencils or pens and some paper, and let's get right to it. To start the sunflower, I'm going to make a circle, and you can go ahead and make it as round as you can. At the lower part, I'm going to go ahead and do a bit more scribbling in here, give it a little shading. If you watched the episode with the drawing basics, you saw a little bit of this with turning a circle into a sphere. Next, we're going to start making petals on it. The petals are going to come out about like this. And they're all sort of parentheses together, or like a tweezer shape, or like a letter V that's pinching at the top as well. However, they're also going to be varied as we go, so don't try to make every one of them look exactly the same. You might want to make some that are curled a bit like this, and this might even head back towards that side and come down. And each one is basically going to be aiming straight out. If you picture a dot in the middle, each of these should be kind of going opposite of that dot. So what's happening on one side of the sunflower, they should be pretty much doing the opposite on the other side. But don't forget there's also gravity playing a part here. So they might vary a bit from that because of gravity. So with that in mind, I'm kind of adding a little bit of a flop to some of these. And the tricky part is we want to make each of these roughly the same size. So what's happening on one side of the sunflower, the petals should be the same size as we work our way around. This is going to be extra tricky for me this time because normally I would turn my paper here, but in the interest of keeping the paper oriented the same way on camera, I will fight the temptation. But if you're doing this at home, don't hesitate to turn your paper if you want. It'll make it a little bit easier to keep these all the same size and the same basic shape. So Jean is kind of a town hero around Medfield. She's done a lot to add beauty and the arts throughout Medfield. So Jean, if you're watching, I thank you. We all appreciate it. She's gotten sunflowers growing up at Hospital Hill, and Straw Hat Park was her handiwork. She was behind that one. I think she might have been behind the utility boxes being decorated as well. So she's done a lot of stuff around the community. She heads up the holiday stroll in December. She does a lot of cool stuff around town. She's kind of an unsung hero of Medfield, I think. We all appreciate what she does without necessarily realizing that it's her behind it. So we're still coming around, giving each of these petals, and again, it's the same thing over and over and over. And once you get one whole row done, then you'll actually want to go back around and fill in some of the spaces that are left behind. So like we'll fill in this space. And this is kind of like variation and repetition. So we're doing the same thing over and over, but we don't want them all to look identical. We want them to look like they are all flower petals, but not everyone is exactly the same. So we're just going to keep adding more and more petals. Just keep adding them until it looks full enough to be a real sunflower. This is also how you would draw a Gerber daisy or a regular daisy. Again, trying to add just enough variation to each one that they all look slightly different to make it more believable. And don't forget that gravity is at play here. So some of them might flop a little bit. Next, I'm going to make the stem coming down. Sunflowers have very tall stems. They can be 7 or 8 feet tall, maybe even taller than that. And the leaves are going to come off like this. And then we'll have a big leaf hanging out here like this. And these leaf shapes are a little goofy. So coming off of this stem, we're going to come up and out. And then the other side is going to go like this and come down to it. And then we'll make the rest of the stem coming down. And then within the center here, I'm going to just sort of scribble dot to fill in all those seeds. A real sunflower, the seeds are growing in, following along the Fibonacci sequence. They make a really beautiful pattern. However, I'm not going to attempt to recreate the Fibonacci sequence. I'm just going to do some scribbles like this. But really they would be kind of spiraling in a repeated spiral pattern happening all around it. Similar to a snail shell or seashells. Just going to finish filling this in. And again, I did the quick little scribbles to add shading at the beginning, which should help the bottom part of the sunflower look a little bit darker. Quick little scribbles like this are also how I would do bushes, or if you're making a tree from a distance, this is a good way to imply leaves without trying to draw every single leaf on a tree. If you do try to draw every leaf on a tree, it actually looks a lot less realistic than if you just kind of scribble it and fake your way through it. All right, now that I finally have all that filled in, I'm just going to come around here, do a little bit more to shade this part, the lower section of it. This side would be facing the sun because sunflowers, as the name implies, they like to follow the sun throughout the day, so they will turn with the sun. And this part of the center would be shaded a bit. If you'd like to make a whole field of sunflowers, you can make more in the background. If I was to add another one over here, it would be slightly smaller, and they would get smaller as they get further back. But feel free to add a whole bunch of more sunflowers to create an entire field if you'd like. Here is our finished sunflower. A big thanks again to Jean Mineo, whose work usually goes unnoticed but not unappreciated. So thank you, Jean, if you're watching. And I hope you all enjoyed following along. Don't forget to tune in for another episode of the Mike Paige Doodle Club.
All right, kids, now that you've finished your doodles, color them in and then share them with both Mike Paige and Medfield TV. We're going to take those images and we're going to put them all over our station. Can't wait to see what you guys make.